People disappear all the time. They disappear from history, from the historical record. Sometimes those people are just unimportant. They're not significant enough to leave a trace on the records or to leave a mark on history. They just vanish into time. Other times, those people are really significant, really important, like Owain Glyndŵr, for instance, a leading figure in Welsh history, in British history, who around 1410 just simply disappears. Sometimes these people are important enough to create significant ripples through history, to leave a significant mark, to be highly influential, even if that is just for one event. Take, for instance, Abigail Williams, an 11-year-old girl who was born in Massachusetts in 1680. She was partly responsible for 25 deaths, 200 accusations of witchcraft, and one of the greatest instances of mass hysteria in world history. Abigail Williams was one of the instigators of the Salem witch trials.
This is Past Force.
In January of 1692, Abigail and her cousin Betty Parris, whom she lived with, along with her uncle Samuel, a local minister, began having strange sort of fits, and they started screaming. And they also complained that they got this pinching or pricking feeling, and they said it felt like they were being pinched by evil spirits. This illness or complaint or whatever it was soon passed around the local area, around Salem, Massachusetts, and about 5 other girls, they were all girls, began apparently experiencing the same thing. So Samuel Parris called in local doctors, and the doctors make a declaration. It's witchcraft. So they come up with an amazing plan to find out who has cursed the girls. They're going to make a rye cake out of the girls' urine. I'm not taking the piss here, I promise. And they're going to feed it to a dog. How this is going to find out who the witches are, not a clue. But pretty soon, Abigail and her friends, her cousin, fingered 3 people, Sarah Osborne, Sarah Good, and Tituba, the family slave. They were, at the time, visited by a minister, Deodat Lawson, who had this to say. On the 19th day of March last, I went to Salem village and lodged at Nathaniel Ingersoll's, near to the minister, Mr. P's house. In the beginning of the evening, I went to give Mr. P a visit. When I was there, his kinswoman, Abigail Williams, about 12 years of age, had a grievous fit. She was at first hurried with violence to and fro in the room, though Mrs. Ingersoll endeavoured to hold her, sometimes making as if she would fly, stretching up her arms as high as she could, and crying, "Whish! Whish! Whish!" several times. Presently, after she said, there was Goodwife Anne, and said, "Do you not see her? Why, there she stands," and said, Goodwife Anne offered her the book. But she was resolved she would not take it, saying often, I won't take it. I do not know what book it is. I am sure it is none of God's book. It is the devil's book, for aught I know. After that, she ran to the fire, and began to throw firebrands about the house and run against the back, as if she would run up the chimney, and as they said, she had attempted to go into the fire in other fits. Now people, doctors, scientists, historians have suggested it was either ergot poisoning or hallucinogenic plants that was causing this illness. But at the time, because Massachusetts was a deeply Puritan society, no, they didn't think, oh, this might be, I don't know, hallucinogenic plants, ergot poisoning, a psychotic breakdown. No, they blamed witchcraft. To me, there is something strange about this illness. Firstly, it was all girls. Didn't happen to any woman over the age of 17. It didn't happen to any boys or any men. And secondly, it only seemed to occur, apart from in this one instance, when the supposed witches were around. Say, for instance, in the local chapel, where Deodat Lawson again says, oh, this happened, Abigail Williams did it again. So it sounds to me like they were putting it on. They were exaggerating, that this wasn't anything real. That this was an excuse to get rid of who the people of Salem deemed undesirable. Abigail Williams also reported seeing a group of women in the woods feasting on flesh and blood. And so, pretty soon, the accusations of witchcraft spiraled completely out of control. And at the centre was Abigail Williams. So why did nobody call her out? Why did nobody say, yeah, I don't think these people are witches, let's be sensible here, let's use common sense? Well, they did. One such man was John Proctor, who said, well, I think they're lying, I don't think this is true. They accused him of witchcraft. Another was Martha Corey, who was sceptical about the accusations of witchcraft. She got accused of being a witch and was hung as a result. Her husband was tortured to death for refusing to say whether or not he was a witch. Anyone who spoke out against these accusations was accused of witchcraft. The situation was absolutely bizarre, and there was no sense of reason around Salem at this time. There was no sense of logic or rationale. But at the heart of it all is this little girl, Abigail Williams. She's the one accusing people of witchcraft. She's the one testifying against them. She's the one making a lot of the accusations. Now, it's not unusual in witch trials for children to be at the centre of things, for children to be testifying against adults, accusing them of witchcraft. The Pendle Witch Trials, 1612, you have Janet Device, who testified against her own family and got them hung. In 1633, Pendle again, you have Edmund Robinson, who accused 19 people including the aforementioned Genet device of being witches. They all died as a result, but it turned out that Edmund Robinson was bullshitting. He'd made the whole thing up. At the same time as the Pendle Witch Trials, you have the Salisbury Witches, which is instigated by a little girl called Grace Sowerbutts. The trial fell apart because it turned out that Grace Sowerbutts was bullshitting. So this begs the question, was the same true of Abigail Williams? Was she being used by a zealot Puritan community to get rid of outsiders, to take out people they didn't like through accusations of witchcraft? Grace Sowerbutts, they found out she had been coached by a local Catholic priest to accuse people of being witches. And I think the same is true of Abigail Williams and the other girls. The situation is incredibly odd and incredibly suspect. People who spoke out against them were accused of being witches. They only had fits, really, in the presence of the witches. And no boys got ill, no adults got ill. It was only girls. Suspicious? Yeah. Can we blame Abigail Williams for the Salem witch trials? Not entirely, I don't think. Because we just don't know. We don't know how much autonomy she had over her own actions. She may have been ill, she may have been faking it. We just don't know. And she may have been doing it at the behest of somebody, an adult maybe, perhaps her uncle, perhaps Samuel Parris, put her up to it. Can we blame her? If we can, we can't place the blame entirely on her, because others were involved as well. And if we can't place the blame on her, I think we can say at least that although she wasn't at fault, she still holds some responsibility for what happened, because it was her actions that at the end of the day caused most of this hysteria. Nevertheless, after the Salem witch trials, she vanishes from history. She disappears without a trace. A little girl whose actions would be remembered forever.
History! It's a thing of the past!
It's a thing of the past.